which is just the best kind of news. This is the news I think almost everyone can agree is just good news. Do Kwon, the founder of the stablecoin Ponzi, Luna Terra, has been arrested, in which, if you're not familiar, it is in Europe. It is located just above Albania, which is just above Greece. So it's on the Mediterranean. And where is it? Well, it's next to Serbia, which is where he was last supposed to be, which means he utilized the fluid border of Serbia, which we had, I don't know if we spoke about it here, but it was spoken about in Protos, that if he was in Serbia, it was because there are extremely fluid borders there. If you look at the map, they're next to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 countries, 8 countries. Like, there's a lot of places you could possibly sneak into from Serbia. So it's a nice location if you are on the run, which he definitely wasn't. He said he definitely was not on the run. A fake Costa Rican passport, which is like,
which everyone who's not on the run has.
Everyone has
keeps
one.
Fake passports, especially when they're not on the run.
Everybody has one. I think you got to cut the guy some slack.
And they're also impossible for authorities to serve, right? Like, South Korea has been trying to find him for weeks now, right? And like saying they couldn't find him. And like the other courts have been saying they can't find him, but sure, not on the run. That's about as good as, no, I'm just going fast across the water.
So I just love one that he was trying to pose as, I assume this dude does not know any Spanish. Maybe he does. Maybe he knows Spanish and I'm getting this totally wrong. But I assume he doesn't. Maybe he was probably practicing while he was in Serbia. But I assume this guy doesn't know Spanish very well. And if he does, his accent is probably horrendous. That's my assumption. And you're not going to be able to speak with a bunch of native Spanish speakers in Serbia. So practicing is going to be relatively tough. But okay, so he's pretending to be Costa Rican. So he goes to an international airport. Like, do you think they don't check this stuff? It's an international airport, dude. I'm convinced he's not nearly as smart as everyone thinks he was or is. So I'm convinced this dude is kind of stupid. He goes to an international airport, tries to travel out of it with a fake Costa Rican passport, instantly gets caught, because of course he does, and is now likely to get extradited back to South Korea, which is where this whole story starts. That's where this whole story starts.
We should also mention, because I don't think we've mentioned it on here, because like there's been so many more important things than Do Kwon going on, but he's also being sued by the SEC again. This time over like Terraform Labs and Terra and Luna. There was already the Mir-related one. Now there's another one. He's getting double sued by the SEC now. So besides being extradited to South Korea, he will eventually have to deal with that. You trying to show off your
cheers to Do Kwon. Cheers to Do Kwon. No, my 85% yield. Anchor beer. If they want to, just give us 125% yield on Cascoin.
We'll let them fund the new Cascoin Anchor protocol. Yeah. That's going to revolutionize the stablecoin industry.
Cheers to Do Kwon, though. Cheers. I want to jump back because this is what I have been. I'm a geography nerd, obviously. Caspiancy. Hope he got to visit while he was out there. But anyway, I'm looking at a map, a globe. I'm looking at Google Maps. And so this whole story starts in Seoul, South Korea.
I like the idea that you were looking at a globe and it was just positioned slightly behind your camera.
Yeah, right there.
No one else can see it, but you can.
That's all I look at.
Trust me, you guys. There's a globe there.
That's all I'm looking at. So this starts in Seoul, South Korea. Then he moves down south to Singapore, which is again supposedly where Justin Sun is. Probably not for long. If that is where he is.
Wasn't there a rumor Sun made his way to Dubai or something like that?
And then I was going to say, so then the rumor was that he had gone to Dubai, which is the United Arab Emirates, which is in Africa, Middle East, not Africa, Middle East. I guess it depends on what you depends on what you call the Middle East. It's between Asia and Africa, right? So anyway, he goes to the UAE. Apparently he's not there for very long and immediately moves to Serbia and then makes his way to Montenegro. Now, like, that is insane. Like, that is insane amount of traveling and traversing of the globe that he was doing to avoid law enforcement and authorities is kind of incredible and mind-boggling. He went to an active, like, violent, tense, almost war zone to avoid getting arrested.
We know he wasn't on the run. We have to assume this was a vacation trip. And he
with
was
what
just
money?
sightseeing
It's
in all these
his
different
billions
places.
of dollars that were his billions of dollars.
Millions.
He said
millions.
He said
at this
billions.
point.
He said billions.
Well, they were.
No, but
they were. Now they're millions. Soon they'll be thousands, and then they'll just be dozens.
I will say this. I do think that as I was driving around earlier, that I imagine being on the run. I did an article on Medium a long time ago called Death Fraud, and it was about Gerald Cotton, the former founder of the founder of Quadriga CX, and this idea of somebody trying to run away from authorities and people who want them dead or want money from them for the rest of their lives, and that it just is a really difficult task. We also had Evan Ratliff on, who tried doing that for a month. He did an article about it, which is fantastic. You should all read it. And it's insanely difficult to be on the run now. It just is. Especially if you have 1 million followers on Twitter and people know exactly what you look like. God, I hope that there's a sweet mugshot. Maybe like bleached his hair, and God, I hope. Please let him have like a big beard and bleached hair and stuff. I would love it. But anyway, like, it's insanely difficult to try to run and run away from authorities and stuff. And I do imagine that now that he is apprehended, it has to be some sort of weight off his shoulders. Honestly, he has to be like, okay, like I'm done now, you know?
I've thought about that. Carolyn Ellison expresses that in some of the texts that have been released, like about Alameda and stuff, where on like November 11th, she's like, it's done. We're out of cash. We can't support FTT. Like, but at least it's over. Like, there was some amount of weight taken off her shoulders. David Z. Morris, who we've had on the show before and who is one of my favorite writers and content creators in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, was tweeting today about how he's worried about Do Kwon's safety. Montenegro has a not insignificant organized crime element, which historically has had a meaningful amount of influence over the governance and policing of Montenegro. And even today in Montenegro, the head of police was arrested on some corruption thing on the very same day they arrested Do Kwon. And so David was worried about the safety of Do Kwon. And I think there's some amount of legitimacy to that. We saw with OneCoin, right? No. We saw with OneCoin that, like, what's-her-face got killed in prison because she was connected to it.
No confirmation on that yet. No confirmation
allegedly,
on that. Yeah, allegedly. I want to make sure that's...
You're right. No, you're right. That's a fair thing to say. We don't know
she could be alive, happened. And I don't want us passing around the idea that she's dead if she's, like, totally fine and like, safe out there.
Yeah, no, it could have been a cover or something, but, like, the story right now is that there's a good chance she was taken out by her mafia handlers, essentially. And I think it's very plausible Do Kwon might have had some money from less savory elements of society. And he may not be in a particularly safe place right now. He may never be extradited because of that.
I think there's always a good reason to worry about people being in prison now ever since Epstein. I don't know. We'll just say he died. I don't know what to call it. Since Jeffrey Epstein died, I think everyone wonders, like, well, shit, you really got to pay attention and make sure that, especially if someone you want to see them see justice, like, you can't just let them get killed or kill themselves or whatever. Like, you want to actually render justice. So it's a true and fair concern. I don't think Do Kwon has much to worry about. And let me just say that the reason I'm suggesting something like that is that we've seen, like, I think Alexander Vinnik was arrested in Greece, which I would assume has similar kind of, I don't know, it's the Balkans, you know? So I just think that there's all sorts of criminal elements all over that area right now in general, in terms of these like trade routes and weird things happening. And it's everywhere, period. But like there in particular, and Alexander Vinnik was able to get extradited. Like I would assume Do Kwon is going to get extradited. I am curious what the timeline is going to be though. Like SBF was an exception to a rule. Like,
oh, absolutely.
You do not see somebody get extradited from one country to another in days, a week at the most. Like that just doesn't happen. So,
but again, like we talked about earlier, in geopolitics, the U.S. can be a little bit of a bully. If you're a small Caribbean nation,
he's not
right
getting
near the United States.
He's not getting extradited to the U.S. That is not where he's.
No, but SBF was.
Sure, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, fair enough. Absolutely. Like good point. Yeah. I think Alexander Vinnik was in prison for 2 or 3 years in Greece before he got extradited, and then he got extradited to France. So now he's in a French prison, and now the US is requesting extradition. So the whole process, if he ever does get extradited to the US, which I don't think he has been yet, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he has been yet. And for what it's worth, God, we're going back here, but Alexander Vinnik supposedly drained the Mt. Gox wallets and was the founder of BTCE, a money laundering defunct cryptocurrency exchange. But yeah,
Bitslotto, but 2018 basically.
Exactly. So this has been a long time coming that it'll be probably 6 or 8 years before he makes his way to America, if he ever does. And I would imagine that Do Kwon isn't going to immediately get extradited from any, like, I don't even know. Maybe he's better off in Montenegro than South Korea, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure. I know he has good connections in South Korea, but like a lot of people want that dude dead there. And I mean that literally. Like there are people whose life savings went into that protocol and they despise that man. So I don't know. I have no idea like where he's safest. But I would be scared but relieved that I'm not on the run anymore.
Yeah, and I get that. And like you talked about that in Death Fraud, and I think we touched on it, like you said, with Evan Ratliff and stuff. Going on the run is really rough. You're away from your friends, your family, all the things that were important to you before. It's not an enjoyable state of being. And if you can avoid being a fugitive in your life, you probably should.